I just wanted to ask you, Dr. Ware, and I think you'll have some disagreement with this, Esteban. So, Butch, I want to ask you, you described Zohran's meeting with Trump as playing footsie with fascists. So I have two questions for you. Do you think that that is inherent, like, to meeting with Trump? In other words, is anything that's not an adversarial meeting with Trump playing footsie with fascists, in your opinion? And then I want you to hear your response, Esteban, after that.
So I mentioned it in passing in a social media reel, that there are two basic issues from my standpoint. The first is that there is no socialism that's possible inside a fundamentally capitalist party, and that there is also no revolutionary potential in the current iteration of Mamdani's engagement. So, from my standpoint, I would take a meeting with Trump if and only if Trump desists from like federal kidnappings of people in my state if I'm governor
Right.
of California.
Sure.
I think it's absolutely crucial to take an adversarial relationship with actual fascists. And if you believe that Trump is an existential threat to democracy such as it is, then for me, it's not good optics to be standing there creating smiling photo ops. And I think that people are not taking seriously the moment that we are in. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
I absolutely hear that. I think that's a valid critique. I think that just based on the way that I've heard about the exchange and what I've seen, it seemed to me like what he was doing was trying to secure what is a significant amount of funding that New York City gets for housing, for basically everything that we do that we need to run the city. And I think that that necessitates some sort of interaction with Trump. I was quite taken aback by the way that it played out, and I still haven't decided how I feel about the whole exchange. There are some really funny aspects of it, and then there's not funny aspects of of especially the things having to do with immigration, which is affects people in my family. But I think, yeah, I think that it would have been hard for him to not have that meeting if he like the amount of funding that New York City stands to lose, like just by the word of the president, is
Right.
significant, and I don't know how you reconcile those two things. He's also at the same time indicated that like some of the raids that have happened on Canal Street and in different places would actually require the NYPD to arrest those agents, and that's something that I think hasn't really happened in any other city and could end up being a significant shift in the way that these that the whole ICE thing is playing out. So we also haven't been really subject to some of the worst of that yet in New York City. It's happened in LA, it's happened in Chicago, it's happened in other parts of the country, but we haven't been like seeing it in the way that others have, and I think
Right.
that would make a difference too. I don't know how much of it he's seen in person necessarily. So so I do like I hear the critique, and I think that yes, normalizing anything with Trump is dangerous. It
Right.
could be, and it could backfire. But I think he was in a difficult position, and I don't know how much differently I would have done it. I do wish they hadn't have talked about real estate, because it is not great to walk out of a meeting with the most notorious real estate developer and be in agreement about what housing is going to be like in New York. That is very frustrating and very scary. To think that that's something that they agree on. I don't think that they actually do agree, but I think the fact that they could walk out of there and say this is the one thing that we actually are aligned on is very disturbing.
So let's watch this one clip in which Trump and Mamdani talk a little bit about housing and real estate.
I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. And we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say that, subject to what policies are being set. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there. The rent coming down, I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect.
So can you break that down for us, Esteban? And then, of course, I'll ask you, Butch, about your thoughts on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's well, first of all, for Trump to be talking about lowering rent when you know his family was famously sued for fair housing violations and not renting to black folks in the 60s and 70s, and like, I mean, he's the landlord, like he's the guy, like he committed fraud in a tremendous number of ways. So to hear him say anything about lowering rent is just, you know, it's beyond pale. But like, I think that was the moment that I cringed, right? That for him to say that we agree that that building more housing is going to lower rents, and it's just the sheer and to see Zohran not even like flinch at that is very concerning.
No,
It's very concerning.
Yeah, well, and what does that signify? Like from the housing perspective, like what does that mean?
I mean,
That the
that means
statement
that,
that we build more housing and rent goes down. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like they're talking about removing, specifically about removing regulations that right now in the city charter allow for community input in everything that's rezoned. And he said something also about how developers keep saying that the waiting is what costs the most money. It's 9 months. That's not really what does it. I think developers, their interest is in not doing what a community wants. Like they literally want to come and plow through and do whatever they want. And we're talking about the tiniest, like a 9 month sliver of like community input where we at least get to have our say and we get to say, this is what you should do. But it does cause some delay, and those delays are what gives us significantly more affordable housing in a particular development. It's what gives us community benefits when we fight for them. Like it's the only leverage that we have as a community to improve what's going to be probably a terrible project, but at least we get a little bit of something. And they're talking about doing away with that, like just that. And so that to me is very problematic. And I would definitely want Zohran and folks that are doing his housing policy to rethink that as much as possible, because that's not going to work. And we're also not going to stand for it. I mean, I think that, you know, you're going to see the tenants that have been backing the campaign. If they see that happening, they're not going to be quiet about it. We're definitely going to say something, because it directly affects us right now, and will displace it if we don't, if we're not careful.
What about you, Butch? Anything you want to say about either that issue in particular or anything else that was said during that clip, or more generally just about this?
I had the same cringe moment that Esteban had, and it's around essentially the idea that building more is the solution to the affordability crisis. We hear the same rhetoric from the Democrat gubernatorial candidates here in the state of California, and this is actually just code word for neoliberal jargon. What's really being masked is that building more is more taxpayer subsidized handouts to developers to develop affordable housing units, where they might build 100 units and 10 of those units will be affordable housing, and then after 10 years those will go back to market rate, and we will have subsidized a massive handout to developers. And the thing is that this is not any kind of solution to the affordability crisis. What's causing the affordability crisis is that Blackstone is purchasing massive amounts of single family properties, and BlackRock is purchasing massive complexes in a state like California. In the Bay Area now, people are saying it could be up to a quarter or a third of the properties, and they're playing games with the books and keeping properties vacant in order to spike those rates. And we know that every time there's $100 median increase in the rent, there's a 9% increase in homelessness, right? So what's happening is it's not just an affordability crisis, but it's directly connected to driving this homelessness crisis. What I would do, what I've been running on, is not to give more handouts to developers like Trump. Like, it should really freak you out that this real estate developer, thug, criminal, landlord thinks that these are solutions. Because what I would do is tax the shit out of Blackstone and BlackRock for all of these vacant properties that they're holding, until they can't wait to sell them to the state of California at a lower rate. And then I'm going to do what they do in Vienna, which is to have between 43 and 60%, depending on which metric is used, of the units that are on the rental market be owned by the state and operated at cost rather than for profit, which serves
100%,
to put
yeah.
a direct market check price gouging that takes place in the quote unquote private sector. But the problem is, and this is the problem, the reason why Democrats and Republicans can be smiling next to each other in those pictures is that neoliberal economics are the economic model of both parties. It means let the private sector eat first. And if all you have is a hammer, then every problem is going to be constructed to look like a nail. If everything that you do is designed to feed the private sector first, then your solutions are going to feed the private sector. So for me, that's not a solution. It's just more of how we got into the problem in the first place.